All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Opening statement, I'll start with kind of an extension of what I talked about after the game. Chris Autman-Bell suffered a lower leg injury, and he'll have surgery on Wednesday, so that'll end his season. So he's got a season-ending injury. We're going to appeal to the NCAA, apply for a 7th year, and that'll be up to his family and him whether he decides to do that or not. He's a huge member of the football team, will continue to be a huge member of this football team. His leadership is second to none, and we're going to need that from him as we keep going through Big Ten play here. It's unfortunate. Your heart breaks for him because he's worked incredibly hard. But we have a lot of people on this football team, and Chris would tell you the exact same thing. There's a lot of people on this football team here in year 6 that can make a ton of plays for us. And I think you've seen that in the first 3 games, the distribution of the football and the ability for a lot of these guys to be playmakers. And, if this happens, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, maybe in a different, he has a different vibe. But again, there's a lot of guys who can make a ton of plays. Chris is a major leader on this team, and he will continue to be a major leader of this team. And I know he's really anxious to get the surgery on Wednesday and start moving towards rehab and getting better. And that's going to be the main focus for him. So heart goes out to him and his family, and heart breaks for him. Because, again, these young people, it's football. I mean, you all saw the play. And when you watch the play over and over, you still can't see it. There's not a twist. There's not a turn. It just goes. And that's football. And there's nothing you can do to avoid it. He plays the game the right way, the hard way. And he's a huge member of this football team. So, again, applying for a 7th year for him, which he'll be eligible for because it happened so early. And but that decision will be up to him and his family. But right now, I know his focus is on getting that surgery on Wednesday, and then his focus will, again, still turn to Michigan State as well because, again, huge leader and a huge member of this football team. So there's the opening statement for today. With that, open up for questions.
P.J., how was he handling
it? One thing I love about this team is it means a lot to everybody. And when you're a really connected team, you've poured a lot into each other. You poured a lot into the team. You poured a lot into football off the field. So obviously when you're in there and you're in there, right, after the game, you're going in and then, we meet back over here in our facility with the doctors and his family. And, you get the news. He responded the way that you'd see somebody respond with really hard news, But it didn't take him long to wipe those tears away. And his mind was already on what he's going to do and accomplish and come back from. And that's what Row the Boat's all about. You take it in, you process it, take a deep breath, put your oar back in the water and go. And that's what he's done. Had a great conversation with him right prior to this because I was going to tell him what we were going to discuss and how I was going to discuss it with him. And, he gave me permission to talk about it. And, but he's doing great right now. I think he's looking forward to the surgery on Wednesday. We've got the best doctors in the country. And, he's looking forward to the game on Saturday. I know that too.
P.J., with talking a little bit about the environment situation you're going into at Michigan State, I know Coach Tucker has really encouraged a really rabid fan base there, and they're coming off the Washington game. When you got to figure that they're pretty upset about that. Really a motivated football team Saturday when they play the Gophers. How does it help? Could you talk a little bit about how does it help you from the standpoint of having a mature football team and a team that's a player-led team like you've talked about?
Yeah, the great thing about college football, you get 12 guaranteed opportunities, some home, some away. But you need to prepare for all those things before they're actually here. We've been preparing to go on the road since January and the hostile and chaotic environments we create for our players, whether that's winter conditioning or whether that's spring ball or whether that's in the summer training camp practices that you're all at every single day. You can see how we practice within that chaos. We know it's going to be a hostile environment. We know that. They're a very traditional football team. They got a great fan base, got a wonderful stadium. We know it'll be loud, and we'll be prepared for that.
P.J., you've been through a lot of season-ending injuries with this program. What did you take from Mo's injury last year that happened at a similar time, and how you kind of direct and message to the team when you lose such a key player?
Well, I think what you have to do is you've got to show them it happens to everybody first and foremost. You look in the National Football League yesterday. A quarterback, 2 quarterbacks I think are done for the year. Multiple other people across the league are done for the year. It's football. This is very different than a lot of other sports that are not violent contact sports, where injuries it's not if it's going to happen to you, it's when and to who. right? And we want to constantly have this perspective for our players that it happens. Don't just be in this little bubble, think it's just this or just us or we're the only one that ever goes through it. But here's how we're going to be trained to respond to it. And I think our players have done an outstanding job with that. You know, their heart hurts and breaks for Crab too, but they also know that, you know, we're deeper than we've been. We've got playmakers everywhere, and they know that Chris is going to be a major part of what we do, even if he's not on the field. This isn't the National Football League. This isn't IR and go home. You know, even that, I mean, I was put on IR. I didn't go home. And whether people wanted me to go home or not, I wasn't going home. I was going to be there coaching people, be around the team, and that's the type of environment we have here. And I don't expect anything less from Chris, and he knows that, and the team knows that.
Through 3 weeks, what have you learned about your offensive line, and where do you want to see him grow entering Big Ten play?
Well, I said before, I thought John Michael Schmitz, Brian Callahan, you know, and I think all of them deserve a lot of credit for how fast they've gelled together. You know, I think we have, like any offensive line, we have some strengths. We have some things that we have to continue to get better at, especially the consistency in what we play with. But right now, I mean, you know, we want to be 1-0 in every championship season. But we've been able to do some things that we really wanted to do in the run game. But also, there's some things that we have to get better at technically, fundamentally, cohesively, where it's one of the only positions where it's a position that works together. But, you know, you can still run a wrong route and go through your progression and still get to the reads 2, 3, and 4, right? One guy doesn't do something right cohesively up front, and you're in trouble fast, right? But I love how they've gelled together. I like how connected they are. But fundamentally in the techniques, pad level, finish, we got to keep getting better in those areas. Not to say we're bad at those areas, but we have to keep getting better in those areas.
What's your assessment from 3 games in Michigan State tape?
Well, this is the interesting thing about college football right now. You know, and this is a top 10 team last week, top 11 team, whatever it was, right? And then this week, they're in the poll and then they're out in the poll, right? In one poll, not in the other poll. It's still early in college football. But they are a Mel Tucker coached Michigan State tough football team. And you can see it. The DNA's across every player that they have. They've got skill positions. They've got 4 or 5 skill players, and probably way more than that. They got a guy that plays basketball for them, making plays on the offensive side of the ball. I think one of their best players is coming back this week, I'm sure. But they've got wideouts galore, tight ends that can block, are incredibly athletic, making freaky catches. They've got a quarterback who's played a ton of football, who's got a ton of moxie, who's got great leadership, got great control of the offense, plays with incredible passion and emotion, and really is a heartbeat of that team. And up front, they've got a ton of experience back on the left side, and they're playing really well. But when you look at the Washington game, it was just a few series early where they got behind. If it wasn't just a few series or a few execution things, it's interesting how that game would have turned out. But they're a very good football team. They're a dangerous football team. Very well-coached football team, disciplined football team, deep football team. And then you look defensively, and, I mean, their front 7 is long. They're athletic. They're experienced. They're very strong. One thing I'll say about they're a very, very strong defensive front. And they've got, I mean, one of their corners is 6'3", almost 6'4". They got length, size. Special teams are consistent. So it's a very good football team that we're going to play. We know that. But just like we say every week, you know, with all due respect to everybody, you know, we've got to play our best football and execute the game plan that's made for the Michigan State season, period, and find a way to be 1-0. We have a ton of respect for their coaching staff, ton of respect for them as coaches, them as a program, their fan base. What they've been able to do over the last few decades is really impressive. You know, but we have to take care of us. We can only control us.
Daniel Jackson returned from his injury. How do you feel he played and how he's progressing?
I thought he played really well for what we asked him to do. He was on a pitch count. You know, he's not on a pitch count anymore. It's kind of ironic, you know, Crab's hurt and then we get Daniel back. But when you look across, there's 4 or 5 wideouts who've all caught passes this year, all have played football before and a ton of football and can all make plays. So, again, they're going to be relied upon. But when I said this at my press conference after the game, when I said you kind of look across the board, 6 different wideouts or 6 different people caught passes, and we didn't throw the ball a ton. The week before, it was even more than that. You know, from the tight ends to the running backs to the wideouts, we have more depth at those positions than we've had in years past, where it's not just one guy that is the focal point, and then everybody's a supporting cast. Everybody can be the focal point, and that's what this team offensively has to understand. And my message to them was that you might be the guy that catches 12 passes in a game. You might go a game with 1 catch or 0 catches. It just depends on what the defense is giving us. But that's a good problem to have for us, that we have a lot of guys playing at a high level offensively that are showing that they can make the plays in the pressure of the moment and the pressure of the situation.
PJ, 3 games into the season, what do you like most about the way your defense is playing?
One, they're playing together, and they're playing incredibly hard, and they're playing assignment sound. Smarter players are better players usually, right? And we have a really smart defense. They understand the calls. They understand why the calls are that way. It helps having Mariano Sori-Marin in the middle, who's basically a defensive coordinator on the field. He can make a lot of things right really quick. Because a lot of people, especially last week, with the shifts and the motions, and then you add tempo to that. That can be very difficult, especially with the calls being made. And at times, depending on what your defense can handle, that can vanilla you up pretty quick, and they can keep you in that defense. And like I said, vanilla you up. And we don't have that. We have guys that can handle calls, change calls, make calls, switch it on the run, and we know everybody's going to be where they need to be. Now, do we need to play better? Absolutely. Like if you were in that meeting yesterday, in our leather vest meeting, I'm probably sure you wouldn't think we played very well. But it's not the score we measure, right? It's how we played. And as a coach, I think Hugh McCutcheon always says we're perpetually disappointed, as coaches. And I think that was one of his all-time statements, right? He says it in an accent different than mine. But he's right, because as a coach, you're always taking from where somebody is, and they can accomplish that, but then you're taking them somewhere where they haven't been yet, or they haven't showed they can do consistently. And so you're constantly learning from either yourself or from other people what you have to get better at. So that's what I respect about our defense right now. And, you're only as good as today, and we got to change our best and have a wonderful day of preparation.
Probably an understatement to say that Michigan State will be the most physical team you've played so far. How do you get ready for that during this week?
Well, I would say that, we're pretty physical as well, and we've been playing against each other since spring practice. And I told you before, as we went into this, knowing what kind of schedule we'd hit towards Big Ten play, if you go back to other press conferences I've had, I said this is the most physical spring ball we had, the most physical training camp we've had, knowing that we were going to prepare for this. If you're preparing for this in Michigan State now, I mean, it's going to be a long day. You better be preparing for those types of teams back in spring ball, in training camp. And, we did more good on good in training camp and spring ball than we ever have in our 6 years, knowing what kind of slate we were going to have this year, especially once we get into Big Ten play.
What have you seen from Brevin to become a complete tight end?
Well, he's becoming a complete tight end. We showed him a clip of Jerry Rice last week talking about how the announcer said to him, when did you know you mastered the wide receiver position, the interviewers? And he goes, I never mastered the wide receiver position. Who said that? He goes, I still haven't mastered the wide receiver position. There was always something I could get better at based on coaches pointing out what I could do. And he said he always respected that. He always respected the coaches that showed him what he wasn't. He knew he was good, and they knew he was good. But what wasn't I good at that particular week? Have the nerve to tell me that. Have the confidence to tell me that. Even though I'm Jerry Rice, tell me that so I can get better, so I can be a better version of Jerry Rice. We showed our team that in our leadership council last week, and when they all kind of take it personal, like, what can you be better at? What can you take from this actual clip? And Brevin's a great example of that. Brevin's playing at a high level, but Brevin also has to finish a catch that turns into an interception, right? Brevin's got to be able to finish some blocks that he knows he can finish. His pad level's got to get lower. His first step can get better. His hand placement can be better. But he's playing at a high level. He's got to know that too. Part of coaching, sandwich coaching, give them something to get your attention, which is positive, right? Saying something positive to somebody is better than saying something negative to somebody. It's going to get their attention a little bit more than just ignoring it. Give them the meat of what you actually want to teach them in the middle, and then give them a little encouragement on the way out. But the meat of what you really want is in the middle, and they're willing to listen to it if you draw them in with something positive. So Brevin's come a long way. I think you've all watched Brevin's development from maybe a basketball kid. Will he ever get big enough? He's so athletic. What will he be? So many unanswered questions. Will we offer him? How many times does he have to come to camp? That was one of the questions his family asked his mom. How many times does he actually have to keep coming to camp before we offer him? And I said, one more. I kept saying one more, just one more, just one more. But you could see that in him, and that's what I appreciate about him most is he's willing to change his best. He's willing to know that he is getting better, and that humble and confident part about him is balanced. He's humble enough to know that, I got to get better, but he's confident enough to know I am getting better, and I can see it, and we need him. Not only him, but we need Nick and we need Jameson and our tight ends to even keep playing better.
PJ, with a couple of big victories over the last few weeks, you've been able to get the younger guys in there. What have you seen from them and that has impressed you so far?
I'm impressed with our young players, but again, it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation, right? Because you're really impressed with a lot of the youth talent that you have, but you know how far away you are to actually maximizing that potential. Not only that, when guys go in to take reps, it shows you how far off or how close they are to getting the concepts that we're actually coaching and teaching, fundamentally and schematically. And again, the expectation of them is you're in the game, so the standard is the standard. So you're dealing with that, plus an expectation of they're probably not going to play as well as the starters. And then a reality, is that going to meet that up to that expectation? And that's where frustration comes in. And so you're doing everything you can to eliminate that frustration because you're putting them in there to gain that experience, but keep that standard really high at the same time, right? And so you have to continue to guide them and nurture them through the week to let them know, like, listen, you're not going to get it all today, but you can control your effort. You can control how hard you play. You can control the hustle mistakes. You can control all that, and that's what I want to see. I want to see them playing fast. And when we go in there, you probably haven't seen a ton of exotic calls. When they've got opportunities, I just want to see them play. And I'm impressed with a lot of our youthful talent, especially when you look at the defensive side of the ball. I've said that before. I said that in week one. I said, you look out there, and this is no disrespect our ones, but some of those young freshmen physically look like they're the ones when they roll out there as, 18-year-olds. And that's what you want to see as you keep developing and building a program and recruiting.
One or two more for Coach. PJ, what are the first three games in the film show on the level that John Michael Schmidt is playing at?
He's playing at an incredibly high level. Can he play higher? Absolutely. Again, same thing. It's that humble and confident part. He's a very confident player, but he knows he can always improve. He knows he hasn't mastered it, but he is such a student of the game. I mean, you give us 100 John Michaels. I mean, just in terms of, give us 100 Mariano Sori-Marins. I mean, I could say that about the majority of our football team because they work so hard at the mental aspect of the game. Being the student of the game, understanding the why of the game, and then truly taking a deep dive into themselves. I mean, we're on the practice field a very short amount of time yesterday, and we end. I mean, it's an hour later. I look outside there. I mean, we have pizza. Two of my pieces are gone. I don't eat a lot of pizza on Sunday night. It's not good for you. And but as I look out there, I mean, there's still 40 guys on the field. An hour after by themselves, working on their craft, not physically exerting themselves like running sprints or running 50 routes because they understand why we practice the way we practice and why we load them the way we load them and what rest actually looks like. But there's still half the football team out there working on unrequired work an hour after we get done last night. I mean, that's what I mean about, that's why this team is so fun to like and be around, and they deserve everybody's best. And they're getting it from everywhere. And I think that's a credit to them.
Final one for Coach, or is everyone else set?
You look at the safety and the experience you have there, what does that do for schematic possibilities just in the back end, with their experience level?
Yeah, I think their experience level, I think the corners' experience level, even the guys that came here have played a ton of football, maybe not at this level. Well, Beanie and Ryan, the transfers that come in, and you look at, Flip. You look at 7, 8 guys in that secondary, they've all played a ton of football. That definitely helps you. It helps each week that you can do some different things. It doesn't have to just be one thing, or they can't handle this, or this person won't be able to handle that. They can handle a lot, and they want a lot. One thing about this team is they want to be challenged. And at the safety position, I mean, there's 2 guys that are incredibly confident back there, but they want to be challenged at the same time. And not only that, they compete with each other every single day. They're incredibly close, Jay Howe and Tyler Newbin, but they compete with each other every day. And it's fun to watch it because they've got a great presence about them, and they love football. They love their teammates. They love getting better. They love the process of getting better. They love the work. And that again, that just keeps coming back to why this is such a fun team to coach. Win or lose, like this is a fun team to coach because the ability to take them to a different level is way better. It's easier because they want to get there and they're willing to do all the unrequired work themselves. All right, appreciate everybody's time. Roll the boat, Sky, Go Gophers. Thanks.